I digested Aspen's entire growth strategy, and today I want to walk you through the core reason Aspen went from one office in 1998 to over 1,000 supported locations today. And here's the thing, it has nothing to do with shiny software or marketing hacks. In fact, Aspen built a platform, a structure that made every new location predictable. And if you're a multi location group owner, like many of you watching here, this is exactly the blueprint private equity looks for when they're assessing valuation. Back in 1998, when Robert Fontana started Aspen, the industry was basically chaos. Every office was running their own front desk, their own scheduling rules, their own billing processes, their own intake forms. They had their own marketing. There was no standardization. There were no shared systems, no predictable patient flow. One office might be thriving because they had a stellar front desk, and the other might be dying because one person did not pick up the phone. Aspen was built to break that fragility and remove the friction on the business side of dentistry. So Aspen's growth, the real engine behind Aspen is a three-layered architecture. The first is the Aspen Group, which is a parent support organization, which I'm going to be talking about further in further detail in a while. The second is the Aspen Dental Management Inc., which is the DSO support organization. And the third is the local Aspen offices, which is the clinical delivery layer. Think of it like this. TAG designs the systems, ADMI runs the systems, and the offices plug into the system. So let's break down each of these in detail. TAG or the Aspen Group. The Aspen Group is not a dental company. And here's the shift in mindset that I want you to feel. TAG is a multi-brand healthcare platform. It sits over Aspen Dental, ClearChoice, WellNow, and more. They've also encompassed pet healthcare, urgent care services, and also they've also done like aesthetic clinics as well. It's where the big decisions happen. They decide where to invest, which markets to expand into, which technologies everyone must use, what workflows the entire organization follows, how compliance is maintained at scale, how data flows across 1,000 different locations. TAG is basically the private equity grade headquarters most smaller groups wish they had. Uh, TAG or the Aspen Group chooses the entire tech ecosystem. This is where Aspen becomes Aspen. TAG chooses centrally the entire tech stack. They're the ones who decide to onboard Denti.ai for perio charting and hygiene listening, MyLab Connect for lab communications, PrintRay for 3D printing, Strawman for implant infrastructures, Clary for national membership plans, and then Invoca for call tracking and conversion intelligence, Birdeye for reputation management, Google Cloud for data, AI, and analytics. And because TAG chooses this at the platform level, Aspen gets something that very few DSOs ever achieve. That is one digital workflow, one data spine, one procurement system, and one way of doing things. And because TAG negotiates everything nationally, implants, scanners, supplies, printing materials, software, Aspen operates at a cost structure local practices just cannot touch. This is not just operational efficiency, it's margin engineering. And TAG does not stop at tech. They also own national onboarding, SOPs, case presentation frameworks, financial scripts, digital education modules, and all the behavioral workflows that keep the dentistry consistent across markets. So whenever someone asks, how does Aspen manage 1,000 clinics? The answer is TAG runs these standards. The offices run the dentistry. Now let's drop down to the middle layer, ADMI or Aspen Dental Management Inc. If TAG is the motherboard, ADMI is the processor. ADMI takes everything TAG designs and turns it into daily execution. ADMI is where all the standards or the decisions or the standardization is then taken into an implementation phase. They centralize scheduling, they centralize new patient intake, revenue cycle management, insurance follow-ups, billing, coding, IT, compliance, lab workflows, front office systems, patient communication, all the non-clinical workflows are then executed by ADMI. Everything that normally varies widely between offices, ADMI standardizes it. Finally, the bottom layer is where the clinical decisions are made, where actual dentistry happens. That is the local, de-risked, localized dental offices. And Aspen has a clear ethical line. Dentists make all the clinical decisions, whereas TAG and ADMI, they don't touch the diagnosis or treatment planning. They are only responsible for the back-end workflows, the operational workflows. But every non-clinical workflow inside those offices that is engineered, standardized, and replicated, that is directed by TAG and then governed by ADMI. So inside any Aspen office, it's the same engine. When you walk behind the scenes, you'll see the same check-in flows, the same registration. It's a chassis. It's a production unit. It's not just a snowflake. And that chassis produces predictability. Standardization is why Aspen gets predictable treatment mix, predictable chair utilization, predictable conversion. They reported an 8% year-on-year growth in 2025 because of the predictability of their account receivable flows, their revenue cycle management, their predictable margins, and their predictable patient experience. Predictability leads to repeatability, which leads to scale, which eventually leads to valuation lift. And that is the Aspen formula. If there's one thing I want you to take from this as a multi-location group owner, it's this. Aspen did not scale because they opened more offices. Lots of groups open offices. Aspen scaled because every new office behaved the same way. Same workflows, same training, same chases, same economics. If you want a private equity ready evaluation, whether you have 5, 10, or 20 locations, you need your own version of this 3-layered system or architecture. That is, you need a platform headquarter where all the important decision making is done. Then you need a centralized operating engine where those decisions are turned into repeatable actions or implementation workflows. And then standardized de-risked local offices where dentistry happens, where those workflows are not the bottlenecks. That's what private equity buys, and that's the architecture that Aspen perfected. Now that we've covered the basic architecture behind Aspen's growth, let's zoom out a little bit and try and summarize it through a simple process diagram. This here is the easiest way I can summarize for you how Aspen went from one office in 1998 to over 1,000 locations today. They used standardization as their foundation. And then they went on to efficiency, then they went on to yield, EBITDA expansion, and then valuation lift. And once you see this, the strategy becomes very obvious. I'm going to break it down for you one by one. You may have heard me say this before, and I'll say it again. Nothing, and I say nothing, scales without standardization. And Aspen understood this before anybody else. At the TAG level, they decide the entire operating system. The period charting tools, the implant partners, the scanners, the financing architecture, the 3D printing systems, the membership plans, the protocols, the procurement, everything. TAG sets the blueprint and then ADMI makes it happen. They are the ones that create actual playbooks to implement what TAG has finalized. They create actual SOPs. They create actual intake workflows. Nobody is shopping for their own supplies or building their own workflows or inventing their own scripts. Every Aspen office runs the exact same protocol, exact same engine. One way of working that is repeated over 1,000 times and more, even when you're onboarding new offices. And here is where it gets fun. Once you standardize, efficiency becomes a byproduct. At the TAG level, unification eliminates all the friction. Instead of 5 implant systems, you have 1. Instead of 15 lab relationships, you have 1 integrated pipeline. Instead of 5 different offices doing their own thing, you have 1 consistent ecosystem. So at the ADMI level, everything gets smoother. You have scheduling, billing, insurance verification, training, IT compliance, and RCM. All of it comes out of the same shared engine. And in the offices, the difference is night and day. There are fewer handoffs, there's fewer mistakes, there's less rework, there's faster patient flow, there's a smoother day for the providers. Front desk teams stop firefighting and start producing and focusing on their work and start operating. You go from chaos to clarity, and that's where scale happens. So here's the formula. Standardization is the decision and efficiency is the outcome. And when you're efficient, you naturally start producing more. The yield gets better. And I know this is where you focus. Yield is simply how much output you get per chair, per provider, per square foot. And Aspen gets extremely high yield. Why? Because the system is standardized. Same case presentation scripts, higher acceptance, same intake workflows. That means that there are fewer no-shows. They have the same digital scans, which means fewer remakes. They have the same lab pipelines, which means faster turnaround times. They have the same financing architecture, which means more patients say yes. They have the same membership program, which means more predictable revenue. And suddenly, the same offices start producing more. The same people are giving more output. The same footprint gives more revenue per visit. Yield is not magic. It's simply what happens when efficiency compounds. The next stage is EBITDA expansion, and this is where private equity starts smiling because once you have higher yield and a standardized cost structure, EBITDA expands fast. It becomes more predictable, it becomes easily scalable. TAG lowers structural costs across the entire network. National procurement, unified systems, they have enterprise level contracts. ADMI keeps the fees flat as they scale. One scheduling hub, they have one RCM team, they have one training ecosystem, one IT backbone. So as new offices plug in, they have better revenue per office, and the revenue per office naturally goes up. The overhead as a percentage goes down, and the margins stabilize across markets. And that's when you start seeing something powerful. Each incremental office adds more profit than the one before. And you're not scaling chaos, you're increasing the margins and multiplying the revenue. That's platform level behavior, and that is what private equity buys. The last but not the least is where it hits the final piece, that is a valuation lift. Private equity does not buy today's numbers. They buy reliable, predictable future EBITDA. Aspen delivers that because the system is built on standardization at the top, efficiency in the middle, yield which is consistent and higher than expanding and predictable EBITDA. Put all of that together, and investors don't see a bunch of dental practices, they see a platform. They see a machine that produces uniform output from office to office, market to market. That is why Aspen did not just scale in size, they scaled in value. And here's the shift I want you to take away. Standardization is not a clinical preference, it's a valuation strategy. If I had to summarize this entire process that Aspen has been following since 1998, since the first were founded, they turned standardization into efficiency, efficiency into yield, yield into predictable EBITDA, and EBITDA into a valuation lift. And that's the exact process of flow that private equity wants to see in your dental group, whether you have 3 locations or 30. Let's dive deeper into the 3 pillars across which Aspen is standardizing its operations for all of its offices. These can be divided into centralized patient intake and inquiry, centralized systems, offers and operating models, and a national people development and career path systems. So let's dive deeper into each of these pillars one by one. Let's start with centralized patient intake and inquiry handling. I want to break down something that Aspen did exceptionally well. If you're running a multi-location group, this one thing will change the future valuation of your entire organization. Are you ready for it? Aspen centralized patient intake and inquiry handling and turned that into scale, EBITDA, and valuation lift. Now, Aspen's at over 1,000 locations, millions of visits a year. You don't get there if every office is winging it on the phones, web leads, and new patient intake. So pillar number 1, that is the centralized intake and patient inquiry handling, is not a side note. It's essential. This is the front door of the Aspen model. And that front door is built on 6 deliberate decisions. Let's walk through them one by one, and I'll show you exactly how private equity loves this part. Okay, number 1 is one phone number, one inbox, one routing engine. Have you ever noticed that Aspen does not list 1,000 phone numbers? No, they just have one centralized number, something like 844, Aspen 11, or something along those lines. Why? Because those calls don't go to a random receptionist. They go into a corporate routing engine inside a centralized scheduling environment. Their job postings literally say it. Scheduling center agents handle calls for hundreds of offices. So TAG controls the telephony, and these scheduling agents, they work in a remote environment. It's like a separate functional unit that is working in the background to support Aspen's entire growth model. TAG controls the telephony, ADMI controls the routing logic, and the local offices just receive booked calls and not the chaos. And here's why it matters. Most practices answer maybe 65 to 75% of all patient calls. And of the calls that they do answer, maybe only half of them convert. Most groups convert anywhere around 25 to 40% of new patient opportunities. Aspen attacks that leak with centralization, better staffing, better load balancing, fewer missed calls, KPIs that are meant to identify the leaks and coach people on them so that next time there's an improvement and there's little less lag and fewer leaks. Aspen publicly uses Invoca, which is an AI-powered call tracking and conversation engine. It sits on top of their cloud telephony and categorizes the calls at scale, which means standardized front door, there's less friction, there's better yield per marketing dollar, and there's higher valuation because intake is predictable. Okay, next, what happens after the call hits? Aspen does not let each office schedule on its own. They run a central scheduling center that is staffed by trained agents. Those agents follow the same playbook. They qualify the caller. They're trained appointment setters. They check availability across multiple locations. They book directly into their schedule. And Invoca's AI does automatic classification. For example, it classifies each coming call into whether it's a new patient or an existing one, whether the appointment was booked or lost, whether it's clinical or is it non-clinical, whether it's related to insurance or pricing, what is the campaign source. And most private practices convert anywhere around 23 to 40% of new patient calls, but Aspen's centralized model pushes that into around 75 to 85% booked call band range. That's a commercial engine. And why private equity loves it? Because this is not an overhead. This is a margin expanding shared service, something you can drop on top of any acquisition. Let's talk about the actual conversation patients here. Aspen runs on the philosophy of Aspen One, meaning the first touch sounds the same anywhere in the country. It's the same structure, same insurance questions, same way they handle emergencies. And here's the data. ADN call conversion studies show that scripting moves new patient conversations anywhere from the 20s to the 70s to the 90s band. But scripting does not matter if the compliance is not measured. That's where Invoca comes in again. So Invoca detects missing phrases like, yes, we can see you this week, or yes, we accept this insurance, or we have financing options available. Scripts lead to codified behavior, and codified behavior leads to predictable revenue, and predictable revenue leads to higher multiples. The fourth is quality assurance and compliance. Most practices still do quality assurance by listening to calls, like 5 calls a month. They set a benchmark, they pick random calls every week or every month. They listen to them manually and then audit them. But at Aspen, they analyze basically every call. Invoca's AI tells them what happened, what did not happen, what should have been booked, what could not be booked, which coordinators are underperforming. The human coaches then review edge cases, and regional managers, they get performance dashboards. This is quality control at scale, and it leads to lower risk. There's cleaner integration for acquisitions. There's better consistency across the portfolio. And this is where the private equity assesses your valuation and gives you a better multiple. The lead to appointment tracking per office. Aspen does not stop at calls answered. They track every call. They track the calls per office. They track bookings per coordinator. They track the call outcomes, the marketing source, the revenue path, the missed opportunities. Invoca's dashboards connect the entire chain. Which marketing led to which phone calls and leads, which of the leads were converted into appointments, and which of the appointments converted into production or revenue. This gives Aspen the economics at the office level, which is everything that private equity firms care about. Because now you can see which offices are performing, which are lagging, which need training, which need systems, and which are the ones that need operational help. You're operating like a platform. You're not operating like a collection of offices. Aspen takes intake out of the offices and makes it a shared, centralized capability. This is why Aspen commands a platform multiple. And the final piece, location-independent offices. which means a patient calling about an office in Florida gets the same intake experience as somebody calling about Washington. It's the same script, same routing logic, same QA standards, same scheduling rules. Most DSOs break right here because each office has its own phone habits, its own intake process, its own scheduling protocols, its own follow-up processes. Aspen takes intake out of the offices and makes it a shared, centralized capability. This is why Aspen commands a platform multiple. It's not randomness, it's architecture. Now let's bring the entire thing back to the process flows: standardization, efficiency, yield, valuation, EBITDA and valuation. Because Aspen standardized the front door, efficiency became automatic. Yield per office increased, EBITDA expanded, and the valuation lifted. This is textbook private equity scalability. So if you're running a 5, 10, 15, or even a 20 location group and you want Aspen style valuation, then centralized patient scheduling and intake is not optional. It's your first systems project that you need to implement. And here's the exact roadmap you can use. Unify the front desk. Start with one number, one inbox, one website form. Centralize the intake. Maybe you start with even a 2-person remote team that's taking all the calls, all the patient inflow. Use AI call intelligence such as Invoca or even PeerLogic. Script the first touch and then use quality assurance to make sure there's compliance. Everybody is using the same scripts. Track by office and coordinator and see which office and which coordinators are leading to better yield, where are the leaks, and what are the workflows or roadmaps that can be implemented across every office. Centralized communication, not dentistry. Do this and intake stops being whoever answered the phone. It becomes predictable. It becomes your growth engine. That's exactly how Aspen did it. And that's what turns a multi-location group into a platform private equity wants to underwrite. All right, let's dive deeper into pillar number 2. Pillar number 2, that is centralized offers and operating models, is what made Aspen scalable. This is the part the private equity firms love, the operating chassis that makes every new location look, feel, and perform like it belongs to the same machine. If pillar number 1 was the foundation, pillar number 2 is the engine. And I'm going to walk you through this same way that Aspen actually runs it. Not theory, not guesswork, but what's publicly observable and structurally repeatable. Are you ready? Let's go. Here's the thing. You don't go from a regional chain in upstate New York to over 1,000 supported offices in 45 plus states by being good at marketing. That's not how all of this works. You scale with a system. And Aspen's system comes down to 6 different pieces. One unified pricing and financing framework, standardized treatment workflows, uniform case presentation and financial communications, national procurement and supplier contracts, centralized leads and peer negotiation, and a replicable playbook for opening new offices. Let's dive deeper into each of these and see how you can replicate Aspen's playbook for your dental group. Okay, so number 1 is unified pricing and financing framework. So the first thing Aspen did, and this is huge, they took all the chaos out of pricing and money conversations. Every Aspen location across the entire country follows one financial architecture. Let me show you exactly what this means. On their website over here, you can see that they have no location-wide financing or no location-wide offers. They have the same offer that is 20 plus off on dental services. Now, if I go here on the dentures page, and we go to the denture cost, it's the same cost because this is a central website. It's not a location-based website. On the implants page, again, we scroll down and it's the same insurance plans. It's the same membership benefits for everybody. It's the same national implant pricing templates. It's the same format, same structure, same messaging, local variation only in the fine prints. That's where customization is required. And even for that, for the customized plans, they have a blueprint to follow the discounts, the offers, and how to present treatment and financing options. This is not random. It's designed to create one financial story across the entire brand. Then again, when it comes to their membership programs, as you saw on their website, they have a single membership chases. That is 49. If it says $49 a year, then it's for everybody. They have standardized national benefits. And these benefits and membership plans are powered by Clary, which is scaled across 1,000 plus practices and 200,000 plus uninsured patients. That's not a plan. That's an infrastructure. That's an engine at play. Then Aspen really differentiates at the financial stack. So they don't let each office pick randomly the lenders that they're using. They use a curated corporate level menu. They have American First Finance that does not require any credit. They have Afterpay. They have HFD proceed style lenders, for example, who give installment financing. They have Aspen Dental Savings Plan, which is no insurance alternative for the patients. And they're bold enough to say it on their website that 99% of patient applications get approved, which means that the financing architecture is as standardized as the pricing architecture. Now, if you look at it, why this matters to private equity firms is because it leads to a predictable revenue per patient. There's no ad hoc discounts destroying margins. If you want to scale your dental group, then your financing cannot live at the front desk. It has to be governed like a corporate entity at the head office level, which is what going to ensure that you're getting predictable revenue per patient, you're getting standardized discounting, you're getting consistent account receivable behavior, you're getting measurable attach rates on your membership and financing plans, and you're getting standardized case acceptance so that there's no ad hoc discounts destroying your margin. This is what private equity values, and this is gold for them. Next, when we talk about the workflows, this is where Aspen goes really heavy on tech, and this is where most mid-sized groups fall apart. So across job postings, across their training pages, across their recruitment materials, Aspen pushes one scanner, that is 3 shape trios. Why does this matter? Because one scanner means one digital record standard, one file format, one lab workflow, one training curriculum, and one scanning protocol, which means there's less variability and less friction. And then the next one is Denti.ai. Denti.ai, the voice-activated perio charting, is probably Aspen's smartest move. They rolled out the digital dental assistant powered by Denti.ai across hundreds of clinics. The hygienists just peek the numbers of the codes. The AI charts it automatically. And what that means is that there's fewer charting errors, there are fewer faster hygiene visits, there's standard documentation, there's consistent perio workflows, and there's a structured data set. Most DSOs just talk about AI. Aspen actually deployed it. The secret trifecta is the MyLab Connect, which is the one national digital lab pipeline. They use SprintRay for national 3D printing ecosystem, and they use the Strawman Group for anything and everything related to implants, including implants, CAD, CAM, and also trainings. This is massive because they've essentially replaced 800 offices and 800 different lab relationships with just 800 offices using one digital pipeline, one set of protocols, one implant system, one 3D printing system. So the clinical chaos has led to clinical consistency, which eventually leads to repeatability, scalability, and a better EBITDA margin. They also use Moto aligners for digital ortho workflow. Moto isn't just aligners, it's a corporate defined aligner ecosystem, which uses digital scans. They have AI supported tooth movement tracking. They have standardized treatment protocols. They have centralized monitoring. And this is a template basically for them, it's not a tool. And it helps across every office that comes under the tag flagship. What this means for operators of multi-location dental groups, when workflows are standardized, the onboarding becomes much faster, the doctor performance becomes predictable, your clinical quality is easier to monitor, and your EBITDA stops swinging from provider to provider. That's the dream for private equity firms, and that's the dream for multi-location owners who are looking to build their valuation. So one thing that we do not see is the internal scripts, but we do see breadcrumbs. For example, they have consistent pricing templates. They have identical financial messages. They have identical membership narratives. They have identical implant explanations, identical no hidden fee messages across all the platforms. And this is not random. This is when you read their financial pages, your denture page, your implant page, and their membership pages, they use the same words everywhere. there, and it's consistent. It's a single platform that uses the same language. That tells you that their chair-side scripting, their marketing messaging, and their financial conversations are all aligned, which drives higher case acceptance. They build a brand around it. They promote transparency, accessibility, and affordability, and they have built their messaging around it. They have predictable conversion rates. They have fewer collection issues. They have consistent AR behaviors. They have more predictable EBITDA. Another smart move made by Aspen is that they negotiate supplier contracts at the group level. So when you have and when you deploy economies of scale, your cost of goods sold shrinks and your volume grows. Now let's talk about the supply chain. They have enterprise level contracts with Strawman Group, Sprintray, MyLab Connect, Philips, Sonicare, and Bardis, with Clary and with Denti.ai. These are not vendors, they are partners, which gives Aspen the volume pricing. They standardize SKUs, predictable inventory levels, unified training, lower cost of goods, and fewer operational surprises. And at scale, that means pure margin. Another thing is the land lease negotiations. And although there's not much to speculate, but here's what's visible across the different public platforms. The Aspen Group handles the real estate plus facilities across 1,100 plus offices. Many Aspen practices sit on the corporate backed triple N leases, and the peer participation is consistent across every network. So ADMI defines positioning and membership financing pathways, which means their rent to revenue ratios can be standardized, their payer mix can be managed centrally, and their participation decisions are made strategically. And the EBITDA is not left to the individual offices, it's centralized as a group. The last and most important part is the replicable opening and onboarding playbook. So this is where Aspen's scale becomes obvious. Every time they move a new office, it's not a project, it's a deployment, because the playbook is already written. They have standard scanner, they have standard 3D printers, they have standard implant ecosystems, they have standard lab integrations, they have standard training modules, they have standard financing, membership plans, hiring paths, scripts, KPIs. That is why Aspen can open multiple offices every month in different locations in different states, because the system is repeatable. It's already in place. It's already proven. All they have to do is just deploy it across a new location. So here's the big takeaway. This pillar, your standardized systems of offers and operating models, is where the valuation is built for private equity firm. And this is what private equity firms are actually buying. Because when your group has one pricing financing system, one clinical workflow stack, one case presentation narrative, one supplier ecosystem, one centralized real estate and payer strategy, one new location playbook, your EBITDA becomes both predictable, repeatable, and scalable. That's what turns a group of dental practices into a platform of companies. And platforms don't get 5 times EBITDA, they get 10, 20 times, sometimes even more multiples. Because investors can model out future payments with confidence. Centralized patient intake and scheduling is what made Aspen consistent, and standardized systems, offers, and financing models is what made Aspen unstoppable. And if you build this out in your group, you're not just scaling locations, you're scaling valuation. So far, we've covered how Aspen created predictable EBITDA with centralized patient intake and scheduling, and how they created scalable operations with centralized, standardized systems, offers, and financing. None of that works without pillar number 3, which is the national people development and career paths. Pillar number 3 is Aspen's unfair advantage, the part that nobody sees, yet everybody feels. A national talent engine. Because you already know this. Operations don't scale. Technology does not scale. Even clinical workflows don't scale. People scale. And Aspen built a people development machine that turns assistants, hygienists, managers, and doctors into predictable, promotable, high-performance operators. Let's break that down. Let's start with something no mid-sized DSO or multi-location group has. A nationwide role-based career framework. This is visible in Aspen's hiring pages, job postings, training academy pages, and leadership pathways. Every role has a corporate defined ladder. So for dental assistants, they have a lead dental assistant, then there's an area dental assistant, then there's a regional trainer. Then there's a lead hygienist, and then there's also a hygiene development coach. For office managers, there's multi-site managers, and then there's also regional operations director. Associate dentists have lead dentists, and there's area clinical director. And each ladder is tied to compensation bands, training expectations, CE milestones, KPI targets, leadership requirements, tenure expectations, competency checklists. This is HR tech at scale, not a mom and pop management. Here's what Aspen does brilliantly. They don't outsource doctorate development. They use ADA certified, accredited CE. And Aspen's doctors follow a structured CE pathway, a leadership communication training. They have implant certification pathways, often Strawman aligned. They have advanced prosthodontic CE. They use digital dentistry CE by 3Shapes, SprintRay, or Denti.ai. Practice owners' readiness programs that are included in the leadership track. This is not random CE. This is a curriculum which is based on the track that is defined for the doctors. Hygiene career pathing with standardized protocols and growth milestones. This is where Aspen is miles ahead of most TSOs. Let's break it down and let's break down what they standardize. So Denti.ai or AI voice charting system is what hygienists use, which makes them faster, more accurate, more standardized, and fully documented. And it creates a cleaner data set across hundreds of offices. Next is the Trios-based hygiene scanning protocol. Hygiene scans are not optional. They're mandatory in many offices, and which means that Aspen accumulates uniform digital records, predictable treatment planning inputs, consistent hygiene KPIs, and standardized reappointment structures. The last but not the least is milestone-based growth ladders. So hygienists follow level 1, level 2, lead hygienist, then hygiene coach progression. They have standard oral care recommendation systems by Philips and Vardis partnerships. They have incentive structures aligned to the hygiene KPIs. So this is predictability in the most variable department in the industry, and Aspen has mastered it well. Assistants at Aspen follow standardized credential-aligned education. They have DANB aligned radiology certification, and then they have Dale Foundation CE library. Most TSOs give assistants a binder and hope for the best. Aspen does not do that. Aspen gives them an accredited professional pathway that they can use to progress their career ladder. One thing which is huge for Aspen is that they use competency-based promotions that are tied to KPIs and tenure. This is huge because Aspen evaluates growth using data, not personality. Every role has KPI expectations. So for dental assistants, the KPIs may include scanning accuracy, turnover time, clinical readiness score, inventory management compliance. For hygienists, it's reappointment rates, it's protocol adherence, it's case presentation assist metrics. For office managers, it's AR days, no-show rate, chair utilization, there's membership and financing attach rates. And for doctors, the KPIs include case acceptance, digital workflow compliance, production per hour, clinical consistency score. You don't get promoted because you've been here long enough. You get promoted because the metrics say that you're ready. And lastly, there's predictable workforce development, lower turnover, and higher EBITDA stability. Because when you build a national people development system, you get predictable talent, predictable operations, predictable EBITDA. This is a part most multi-location groups never truly understand. Standardization is not about limiting people, it's about amplifying the business. It makes everything measurable, coachable, auditable, and improvable. It stops every office from reinventing dentistry on an island and turns the whole group into a synchronized high-performance machine. That's why the organizations that master standardization can open locations like clockwork. The EBITDA does not shift from one office to another. The KPIs don't depend on who picked up the phone. The financial story feels like a platform and not a patchwork. Because they've built a system that makes every location run the same way. That's the real difference maker. You don't scale valuation by adding more locations. You scale valuation by limiting the variation or the variance and eliminating variability. And the moment the business runs the same way everywhere, everything becomes predictable. And predictable EBITDA gets valued like a platform, not a practice group. That's the whole game. That's the blueprint, and that's exactly how a 5, 10, 15, or 20 location group becomes a serious private equity ready operator.